Hello, RP people, and welcome back to another episode of Role Playing as Smart People, the podcast where we pretend to know what we're talking about when it comes to all things tabletop. My name is Santa, and I'm glad you can tune in again. Joining me as always, I got Mr. Finder and Scott W. Say hello, guys.
Hey.
What up?
So, on today's topic, we're going to be discussing GMing, why you should do it, what are some of the reasons why people don't want to do it, and is it actually as hard as people say? All that and more. Now, Finder, before we actually started recording this episode, you put up on our Discord the things that your kids said for why they don't want a GM. Would you be able to talk about that? Because I thought it summarized a lot of people's opinions pretty well.
Absolutely. So my daughter, who is the oldest of my children, her problem that she has is she doesn't feel like she's fully capable of the prep necessary, and then also potentially having to improvise or improv things when players go off the tracks, which is bound to happen. She doesn't feel like she's a strong enough storyteller to successfully create something that the players would want to have, or that the players would want to play in. And she just generally feels like she's a stronger, she does better character work. She did say, however, that she would like to GM, but she just doesn't think that she would have as much fun GMing as she does playing, nor does she feel that her players would have as much fun if she were GMing. Then my oldest boy, his thing was all about more the mechanics, right? Learning the rules, choosing a system that is going to interest the players, and then does everybody have to learn the rules? Then preparing for the game, going so far as to like, do you have to have battle maps? Do you have to have all your NPCs up and online? And so he was thinking more around the technical aspects of it, especially in this world where we do a lot of online gaming, especially as a group. We tend to do all online, so his concerns were around the technicalities of being able to learn how do you upload the maps, how do you get your characters in there, how do you put the NPCs in there, and having all that stuff ready and available. Although he did go on and say that he felt like the improving part of that would that seems like that would be like a lot of fun for him. He'd love to be able to get to that part where it's all improv, and he also really enjoys the idea of world building. So those are some of the things that are enticing him, but a lot of it's just the bureaucracy of getting into it's the bureaucracy, quote unquote, getting in the way of actually trying to do it. How do you overcome that? For my other son, he felt that it was similar to my oldest boy. He's interested in doing it. He thinks it would be fun to try and do it, but all of the research of coming up with monsters and finding the NPCs and where do you start with that sort of thing. And then my sister-in-law, her response was that she would like to try GMing one day, but she doesn't feel like she's got enough time. There's just too much going on in her life. She's a mother of 3 kids, all younger than the age of 5, and she feels like she'd need about 3 hours a week just to prep and feel ready for the game. So those are the kind of the reasons that my sphere of friends outside of this group came up with around what prevents them from GMing or what's holding them back.
Yeah, I actually asked the question on Reddit and also on Twitter just for the purpose of, just trying to see what everyone said. And you kind of summarized almost every single, it's funny, within every single person, you've summarized at least one of the issues. Like one of the people on Twitter at @matrix_01, who is actually in their own actual play, Resting Glitch Face. She actually mentioned it as the performance anxiety, where she's just like, she's worried about, the improv skills not being up to snuff, trying to keep the PCs from just taking everything completely off the rails, and just trying to even like manage, because she herself, she was saying that she's played with some amazing GMs, and when you do that, like, it's a lot of fun, but you almost, and I have the same thing because I've played with you, Scott, and I've played with Finder in your group, where the GMs, they both have two different styles, but they're really, you guys are really good at GMing, and you almost compare yourself to, the GMs that you have, and you're like, shit, can I even do half of what they do? Like, it's true. Like, I think I would have some performance anxiety when it comes to GMing. Don't clip that. Wait, I did clip. And yeah, like, I don't even know, how would you guys even, like, as you guys who have GM for a while, like, when you started, did you have any of those kind of worries pretty much running a campaign?
No, but I was also, Jesus, 10, 11. And so we were just, flipping the book and like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so you just went to him like, here's how you make a character. Cool, let's make characters. Cool, what are we gonna do? Oh my God, we're gonna go do this little tower thing and we're gonna rescue the villagers. Oh my God, there's a trap. Oh my God, there's goblins. So, yeah, and you just kind of, I don't know, I fell into it. But also I've got a natural inclination for, theatrics and stage and, speaking to people. So I don't know if that may have helped or not.
What about you, Finder? Did you have any? Because, like, I know you've been GMing for quite a long time now, but, like, back in the day, do you remember having any of those kind of anxieties when running a campaign?
uh, had as in past tense. I still have those anxieties to some degree. It's like my brother-in-law said. I think he put it perfectly. He's like, he says, I think it's that you'll think it's. Hang on, let me find the right spot. Players will tell you otherwise, and then you worry. Like your players will tell you that you're doing a good job, and then you worry, are they lying to you because they're your friends? They want you to feel good. So I mean, that is something that I struggle with occasionally because I know some amazing GMs. I know some mediocre GMs. The funny thing is, even with the mediocre GMs, I still have a good time because you just need somebody there that can adjudicate and give you an idea of a story, right? It's like, hey, let's go do this. Okay, great. And as long as the players are invested, you're going to have a good time. But yeah, I still have that. And to Scott's point, growing up, I mean, this was back in the late 70s, early 80s when I was watching my brother. So I at least had an idea from watching them DM of what was supposed to happen. But I was telling my wife earlier, I'm like, you know what? I grew up in a great time uh, to some degree, and in some ways, I think it was harder because we didn't have YouTube that we could go and watch actual plays to see how do you GM. If you didn't know
Yeah.
anybody, to Scott's point, you figured it out on your own, and you hoped you were doing it right because there was nobody saying, yeah. Even though I mean, the book would give a little bit of an idea, but there wasn't even a lot of GM advice in the book. I mean, you look at the old D&D rules, and it was mostly rules. I mean, there was very little advice on the GM, and they didn't have a lot of examples in the book. So yeah, you really just hoped you were doing it right, and we muddled our way through. But
Yeah, in this episode, I might be asking a lot of questions because I do have some of these same feelings towards be actually fully branching out. Like, I've done a little bit here, a little bit there, but I've never really ran anything too crazy. So I might be asking some questions. Finder, how do you actually, like, how do you get past that anxiety in order to get to the next session? Like, what is there any way that you kind of almost have to prep up yourself in order to try and, like, almost beat it?
you know, this is going to sound weird, but for me, completely screwing up and realizing that it doesn't ruin the game did it for me. It's
There
kind of
you
like
go.
I was completely afraid of public speaking until the day I was public speaking in public, and I completely flubbed it. I mean, I was so off the reservation when it came to that that topic, and it was so completely bad. But in that moment, I realized, you know what, these people aren't going to kill me. Most of them came up and said I did a great job anyway, and even acknowledged that, yeah. that was that was pretty bad what happened to you. I feel bad for you, but you did a good job. And hearing people give positive feedback, same thing happens when you're GMing. When you completely feel like you've screwed it up, a lot of times I found that those are the games where there's been a lot of fun stuff. Like there was a scene in one cyberpunk game that I was running where I said, you know what, I'm going to experiment. And it ended up working out really well. There was no plan. And I found that a lot of the times, the more I overthink it, the more of a problem it becomes for me. Whereas if you have a rough outline of here are some of the key points, um, that gives you some flexibility so your mind isn't as rigid in this idea of it has to go this way, and if it doesn't go this way the whole game is ruined. Allow yourself some flexibility because your players are going to do things you don't expect, and they're going to go down a hallway that you didn't have planned, and they're going to do all sorts. I'm not talking about my paladin, but apropos, I guess.
Just saying.
Yeah.
But I mean, and those weird turns that you're not expecting that force you to think on your feet. I have found those to be a lot of fun, and the players, you can rely on the players a lot to carry the story at that point, and let them, and they'll have fun doing it.
No, that's actually a really good advice because even like I'm thinking back to my session I ran with Wrath and Glory. We even got to a part where it was like I legitimately didn't really know the rules for this part, and I confided in the players. Was like, heads up, guys. I at this point I'm not too sure exactly. And so instead of like slowing down the game, because Finder, you played Wrath and Glory. It's the book itself, like it's improved dramatically, and this is come and the original book, the layout of it. Um, how can I put this nicely? It really sucked.
Was it as bad
And
as Cyberpunk Red?
ooh, no, because
Damn.
you could at least find the rules. Um, yeah,
Damn.
cyberpunk. Oh my god, that's a whole nother topic.
Damn. So I wasn't wrong. Anyway, keep going.
No, yeah, it's a heap of garbage. And so like I just said, like, hey guys, I don't really know the rules for this, and they're like, okay, well that's cool. We could skip because it was the vehicle rules. They're like, well, we could always just do something else if you feel more comfortable. Or I was like, if you guys want, we could just kind of, you know, just bash in the rules, what makes sense, and then I could learn them and do them better the next time. And they're like, yeah, we could do that because all we want to do is drive from point A to point B, hijack a car, and do a few other things. So I was like, yeah, okay. So we went just with the skill rolls, and it worked out pretty well.
Nice.
And they had fun doing it. Unfortunately, just schedule conflicts, and everyone always kept on saying, "Oh, I can't come. No, I can come. No, I can't." The whole goddamn story, and we've had to do that here with our own games. Um, but yeah, it worked out well just because I thought like, well, at least I think, because I was just being honest with them and saying, hey, I just don't fully know at this moment.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, managing expectations. I mean, that's a lot what it's about. Is people are willing to go with you, and they're there to have fun, and they want to have fun. So
yeah,
if they didn't want to have fun, they wouldn't be playing with you. So
yeah. Another thing, kind of in the same realm of the whole performance anxiety, I found was a lot of people are worried about their players not having fun. Um, do you have any advice, Scott, for how can you make sure that your players have fun, or is it really something you should even be worrying about in the first place?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely worry about it. Shit. So, I don't know. Some of this seems so ephemeral to even talk about. It's like, so I will take a look at what you kind of know what people consider fun, and you can discover the little hooks. So you can try one. Like, I think a problem mistake is people try to shotgun a lot of different approaches instead of saying like, oh, let's see if they like to do an investigation. Oh, okay, that took pretty well for this one person. Let's see if they like combat. You're gonna have someone who always likes to fight, and if you
Mhm.
understand what they like, then you can start interspersing some of those encounters, and you're not going to make everyone happy because you can't really, it's hard to do some of the combinations, but when you can take it to the next level on what I've done, and I don't know if you guys have picked up on it. um Sorry, I keep clearing my throat. Some folks do, but if you ever noticed, if we're playing Savage Worlds, a little bit different because it's not really class based. But I'm playing D&D or another class based game, or a game where you're focused. I can even do it in Savage Worlds. I'll describe a scene or a person or an object or a thing based on your character's professional perceptions. So like, hey, we're going to do a notice roll, or I want to do an insight check on this fence, and it's like, okay, so the thief was succeeded, the fighter succeeded, and the cleric succeeded. So it's like, okay, well, I know that they made those characters for a reason, because everyone makes a character for a reason. Every skill they pick for a reason, every weapon they pick for a reason, and they're basically broadcasting what they want, what they think, what they consider fun and neat. And so you take those, and that's how I use that. Is I'll say, okay, well, thief, the words he's using, some of the slang, you understand that there's some connections there to the underworld. You can go a little bit deeper than that. And for the fighter, it's like, okay, well, he doesn't seem to have a stance that would belie competence in a combat, but his bodyguard is definitely competent in a fight. Um, and then for the cleric, be like, maybe they use vulgarities, or utterances that are considered profane, or they're unwashed, and then that's also considered profane. They don't wash their hands before a meal, things like that. And if you really ping on what the people at the table have created, I think that will help you bring your players into it, and really cast a wide net for them to start to enjoy the game, because it shows you have interest in their characters, even if it's not really interest in the character. I don't really care what you play. It sounds terrible. I care that you've made a character and you have subconsciously or consciously told everyone, this is what I think is cool and how I fit into this story. And so, cool. Okay, well, how can I do this? And how can I make this fun for each of these people? But I don't really pre-plan a lot, so it's just, I don't know. Does that help at
Well,
all?
No,
there's something though that I think that you've touched on that hasn't been said explicitly, and that is you, as well as a lot of the other who I would consider good GMs, seem to apply the principle that I learned in an improv class one time, and that is the yes and,
Yeah.
where you don't try to shut somebody's idea down. If I want to do something, you try to find a way to allow me to do that thing that I want to do. There's no, well, the rules don't allow that, so no, you're not going to do that. Instead, you do try to take what we do and incorporate it. And even like my brother, who I always considered a really good GM, he even did that with the world. Like he had his idea of here's what the world is, but as players, as we would start injecting our own stories, we would start making up aspects of backstory that he allowed to become canon. Like if we talked about some monster, that monster suddenly became canon, and if he ever needed it, he'd go and stat that monster out if he wanted us to meet it or to confront it at some point. But allowing players to take partial control of the world and realize that it's a shared experience is something I think you and all the other GMs that I've noticed that are really good, or who I consider good, have a tendency to do, is allow the players that input and take that input and run with it.
and you know what? I actually never considered what another thing that you said, Scott, was they took those skills for a reason because they think that's fun. It seems so simple once you say it, but it's like one of those things where skills are just so used that you don't really think of them anything but a mechanic. But yeah, if you're going to take a skill, you want to take that skill for a reason. And
Mhm.
if and even if, like, let's say you don't, if the GM doesn't really find a way to use those skills, the next time the player might just say, well, that was wasteful, and like it might even put like a sour taste in their mouth. Like that's actually like, and it doesn't have to be like, continuous use of that skill, but to find a reason to use those skills every once in a while, like, yeah, that would automatically make people have a little bit more fun in that.
Yeah, well, yeah, because really, you can create your own worst nightmare, which is the Munchkin. If you did what you said, and you just don't let anyone shine with whatever weird skill they have. And you can look at, like, I guess my the way I do things, it comes through in like the narrative chases that I always create. Like if the deck of cards or in the different games I write, you look at those, are always choices, and it always allows the player to draw on a strength of their character. It's not just one simple solution of like, oh, make a driving check. Okay, cool, you failed. No, it's usually presented like, okay, well, the the our getaway driver isn't the one in control right now because they've been shotgunned through the face in the window, and now I've got the hacker driving, and I know the hacker doesn't have the driving skill, but what the hacker does have is the hacker may be super smart, right, or super prescient. So let's use that. Hey, you're cruising along at high speed. You can either try to avoid this, right now, making a driving check, which is not going to go well, or either you can see if you can catch that cutaway alley to the left quick enough using your intelligence. And that's just in everything that I do is I want to pull on the strength of the characters and make everything they do, like I said, make everything they do feel important. Every choice they've made matter.
What's fun about that approach though as well is it puts that choice in the player's hand, because I've got some players that will usually go with their weakest skill
Sure.
because
Yeah.
they think that's going to be hilarious and it's going to be fun. And if they succeed, it's even more epic, right?
Yeah.
Right now, my son in our Coriolis game, he plays a captain who is really good at talking to people. He's totally a face man, and the way he plays that character off is it's always somebody else's idea that he just takes and runs with. So like when another person in the party says something, he will use that and say, "Oh yeah, great idea," and then he will make it work because he's got the skills to do that. But then he also says, just so you guys know, right now it's canon that whenever we're in space combat, my character is never going to really say anything. He's just going to pose. You all are going to know instinctively what to do. And if anything goes wrong, it's the captain's fault. That's the kind of character he wants to play. He's like, I picture like that. What's his name, Bradigan or whatever it is on Futurama, right? Zap Brannigan.
Yeah.
Zap
He's
Brannigan,
like
yeah.
he's like
Yeah.
a Zap Brannigan type character. That's how I picture him.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And as the resident Futurama nerd, yeah, that makes sense. I'm not gonna lie, I just had like a bunch of lines or a bunch of like different episodes popping to my head where it's just like, oh, we just threw bodies and bodies at the killer robots because they have a certain kill count before they shut off. So we just kept on throwing body after body until they just shut off by themselves. So I'm just thinking, yeah, that works. Um,
Uh,
I think another one that probably a lot of people are concerned about, and it's funny because after playing with you guys for a while, this was one that is one of my least concerned ones because I find you can do it well. The prep work. Do you really need to put in, let's say, 3 hours if you're running a session every single week? Do you really need to put in 3 hours of work in order to have that session prepared for the players?
that depends on your school of thought.
And the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because even one of the people who on what is it, on Reddit, they were saying it's just like, yeah, I don't know how much prep work I need to put into it. It just sounds so daunting, and they even said the perceived how much I think it actually needs to be put into it, the time and energy. So yeah.
So here's my take on that. Now I will preface this with the statement that I have a personality type where you can ask me last minute to do something and I will run with it. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable doing that. I know that there are some people who would be utterly terrified at that notion. However, I will say that you do not need to put as much prep in as you tend to think you do, because your players are going to throw all that prep work out anyway. Scott probably had a much different campaign plan until I decided to go down that corridor and confront that Barrow King.
No, see, you know the truth? I knew you would do it because that's how you play. That's the kind of player you are, and so that kind of goes back to what we're talking about, right? Is I don't prep anything. I just was like, here's the dungeon, here's what I want. It's a barrow. Let's see what happens. And odds are, Finder's going to go down there because one, I know how he is, and two, he's playing a paladin, and I know he's going to play the character to the letter of the letter of the law to have an interesting time. And I was like, man, here we go, cool story. You know, and then you guys all, and I try to provide warning signs, but it goes in the back of like knowing your player, knowing your players and knowing what they find interesting, how you engage them. I know that he would find that fascinating and was like, we're not turning back on this. I could feel him vibrating through time when you two were like, we're not doing this. This is too dangerous. It was like, I'm playing probably, and we're going down this fucking hole.
Yeah, but yeah.
I mean, am I wrong on that assumption?
No, I don't think so.
No, the moment you did it too, I was just thinking, yeah, we're going into that pit.
I will say, if I hadn't looked at my character though, if I hadn't looked at the character sheet and the moves that he had, I was at the point of being swayed until I asked the god. And once the god told me that that's evil, okay, now I know what I got to do, whether I want to or not.
Yeah, the one role you succeed in is the one that tells you that there's something evil going on. Of course.
For real.
That's because my dice like TPKs.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that. Wait, what was? I'm sorry. I'm sidetracking my head on the topic. You said prep, right?
Yeah, prep work.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, you guys, how much prep do you guys think I do for a game? Because since you brought it up about I had whole other plans and all that jazz. How much prep do you think I put in the game?
I think it's mostly front loaded, where you might put in like a couple, maybe like an hour or two, prepping up the setting itself and kind of theme. But after that, I think you kind of just let it go with the flow. Like, for instance,
definitely you know me well. Go ahead.
Yeah, like because I was even thinking because there's the one with where you put into an investigation, you had all those notes written and everything like that. I was like, I know all that shit was front loaded because you had all that stuff already. You were talking about, oh yeah, nope, not the right one, no this one. So I kind of assumed you prep up everything at the beginning and then you just say, okay, let's see where this goes.
I make like an outline, but like some of the stuff like that is a very specific campaign, and I've had that. I've had all those converted over, and I've done it. But you're right. To me, the props are the setting and the maps. That shit's more important because you're right. The theme. So how much prep do you think I did for the Mothership adventure? So first off, I would say that you guys had a blast with the Mothership adventure. Am I wrong on that?
Oh, Mothership was fun.
Okay, so science fiction is one of my weakest. Probably my weakest genre that I ever tried to GM. And so I fret about that and fretted like a whole thing, like everyone else has talked about. How much prep do you guys think I did for that adventure?
I think you watched Space Odyssey.
That was all made up on the fly.
Oh.
100%. I had no idea.
And that would have been my guess.
Yeah, I had no idea what to do.
And I mean, that just goes to my point earlier, though, where you don't have to do a lot of prep and let the players run with most of it.
Yeah. You guys
you sit there and throw one comment out, and you let the players' paranoia amp it up.
Yeah,
and that's cool.
It works so well. Yeah. It was amazing. That was probably one of the most fun I've had running a science fiction game. Actually, I will tell you that.
Yeah, and that was so fun. I really wish we got past just the first session, but.
Me too, because that computer is going to straight fucking murder your character.
Oh, I know. You were setting me and the android up, and
she was doing her best.
And the only reason why my character probably didn't go full ham on it was because I was playing him as a complete idiot who wasn't putting things together.
But you were militant. You were just someone who had served, and your purpose wasn't the militarization of space or the moment. And so it worked for your character to continue pushing because that was what I realized I was onto something based on how the other two were reacting to it and how you were reacting. And so I was like, oh, I can keep pushing this button. And then I'm like, oh, but the android, you're not getting the fuck off scot-free because I'm going to make this super weird. Right. Because you're not even a normal life form. And so the entities that are out there realize this. And so they're going to turn the humans against the android. And then I know that Finder is easy to. He gets annoyed with illogic. And so I knew by letting Mother behave in an illogical manner, it would keep him on his toes. Of like, I'm trying to get some actual shit done with this dumb fucking ship. So that was all on the fly, organic, hand to God.
And it was just fun because I remember from that one, like even like when I was doing actions and I was explaining them, I could like when you turn back on the gravity just on the fly. And my guy, for anyone listening, my guy was pretending to be Iron Man in space because he just got his armor and everything, and so he was singing the Iron Man song, and he was going and he was like flying and he had one hand up, and then all of a sudden gravity turns on at that moment, and even the fucking mother mumbled, I hate, what was his name again? What was my guy's name? Skylar? I think it was like Skylar. I picked something super like douchey and hipstery. I'm pretty sure it was Skylar, and I just hear, I hate you, Skylar.
Right, but it was the mother voice, right?
Yeah, it was the mother voice. I hate you, Skylar. And then my guy said, "What is that? What did you? Sorry, I missed that. What did you say, mother?" And then it was nothing. So I was just like, well, maybe I just misheard something or whatever. Oh well.
So I gave you guys the Andrew Ryan on her because she always asked permission before she did something terrible to you. And one of you always gave her permission to do something terrible. Like the reason gravity came back to the ship was because Finder ordered Mother to fucking reinitiate gravity. But she chose when to do it. Because I knew you were at the moment trying to scramble. You had already said you were getting your shit on, you're going to be on the move. And so I'm like, oh, we're going to wait till you get halfway down this hallway. and then she was, and like I said, and so that's the thing too, with if nothing else for prep, like the names and all that jazz, yeah, those suck to come up with, but the give three things to a character or an NPC, or if there's something that's going to be important, give them a voice. Like Mother, you guys will probably never forget her delivery. No matter what.
Very, very dead. Like, what was it, deadpan almost?
Yeah, she was like, I'm trying to think of, God, some of the anyway. But yeah, it's you one of those, and you'll never forget that NPC of like, this ship fucking hates us.
Yeah,
and we don't know why.
Nope.
And we still don't know why.
No.
Yeah, true statement. That's unfortunate.
Here.
Yeah.
But I mean, the other thing though about that is, even if you feel like you have to do some prep, one of the tricks that I've learned is you figure out what the key points are, and then you leave them ambiguous. Like if you have 2 cities that your players can go to, don't put that thing in one specific city unless there's a very specific need, and you got to force them to that city somehow, which is railroading. So that's why I generally try to think of it in terms of this thing, can it happen anywhere? If so, great. I'm going to leave it happening anywhere and let the players go where they want. And hey, it just happens to be in that city where that happens.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a book I advise everyone to buy. It's only like $5 for the PDF. I don't know how much the physical copy is. It's the Lazy Dungeon Master, and it'll teach you how to do just that with some index cards, and you'll stop thinking in the linear fashion and go with what Finer just said. So the Lazy Dungeon Master. And on top of that, Sly Flourish has a blog, and it's Sly Flourish 2 words because he started his blog from the 4th edition days. I mean, he talks about the 5-room dungeon, the 5 adventure campaign, and the 3 clue process. So if there's something you need to do and you're not playing a game like Robin Law's little adventure game. Shit, I can't remember the name of it. His mystery game. But if you're playing a game where D&D or Savage Worlds and you're doing clue hunting, there are easy ways of going about it. And if they miss a roll, which they're going to do, you don't screw them. You have 2 more ways of getting that clue. So one might be a visual means, one might be something they read somewhere, and one might be someone they meet that has the information. And so you always can present and put in front of the party those options. But you should always have 3 methods of getting to an answer of a like a, not a riddle, but like a clue, of finding that clue that helps you move the campaign forward. But those are 2 great resources for really getting ahead of some of this, of what you're talking about.
And one thing that you've also kind of taught me from your GM style is to ask the players questions about the world. You don't always need to know the answer. In fact, if they already gave you a suggestion, chances are they already have an idea.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's one, like, a lot of people think the GM needs to come up with everything, but no, I think just letting people kind of figure it out for themselves, and it kind of almost makes players more invested in the world itself. So why the hell wouldn't you, right?
Right. And even if, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish
I
your
was gonna
thought.
say because you said your brother does that too, right? Where he lets you guys help create the universe.
Yeah.
It's awesome. The biggest obstacle for people is ego, and I don't mean like you got a shitty ego, just like the ego death. Let go of your preconceived notion of this is gonna be the greatest Lord of the Rings Middle Earth adventure ever, and just start asking those questions like we've done before, or have a groundwork, and then ask them, well, how do you're druid? What do you know about the cleric's temple? Because then they're just making shit up, and you can make those notes, and the cleric can say that's bullshit, or it can be true. And depending on your players, they may run with stuff and start to really kind of roll off of one another, and that's where it gets really interesting. And I've always done that for you guys. I for every group I have is I let them riff off of one another, and I'll make notes. And some things that someone says is not true, I'll be like, we'll see about that, because now I've got a secret. The druid knows some shit about your temple cleric that you don't know because you're an initiate, but there is an Illuminati order within your religious order, and
Ooh,
they are out to dominate the world, but you just don't know it yet. But we're going to get to that point in the adventures.
that's actually really clever.
Similar to that, or what can be a big help for a new GM is just what you were talking about, Scott, is letting the players do a lot of the legwork for you.
Mhm.
And there's like this thing called backstory cards,
Yes.
which are a total blast. I
Yes.
mean, because basically you're asking your players to come up with, like, come to the table and I want three things here, 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 and here, and they throw them out, not even knowing what they're going to be about, and then through the backstory card process, those details get worked out by the players. Generally speaking, the GM can guide things a little bit. The GM kind of says here's the tone we're going for, but they come up with a lot of that stuff, and then that automatically gives you like story hooks that you can pull
Yep.
on, that gives you ways to get that player invested in the adventure that you're going for. And it's a lot of fun, and we've got some really interesting things in the Coriolis game where I used it for the first time, and all the players seem to have really had a really good time with it. So
Yeah, and they have the base pack. I take the money and buy the
all of them.
deck and buy everything. They have genre packs, and people are like, well, it's kind of what I described, and it's real simple. So we're sitting down to play a cyberpunk game. Okay, so Finder. On the last job, you were working for the cartel or the Arasaka Corporation. Which one was it that you were working for?
Arasaka.
So while you're working for Arasaka, and you know how they feel, but you had to link up with the street rat, which is Santa. Now, you two blew the mission completely, and it was Santa's fault. So, Santa, what did Finder's character do that led you to just fuck this whole mission up? And that's literally a backstory card.
Yeah.
And that's just how it's presented. And you just start asking those questions, and you watch, like Finder said, you watch the imaginations run wild, and it really does help a person grow in their, imaginate.
Well, and the cool thing is, it can also help you come up with NPCs, because they have to come up with people
Yes.
that aren't the characters.
Yep.
And then, like, there's one character that there was one NPC that came out of that entire process that the players love and hate simultaneously, because that one character has done good for them, and that one character has screwed all of them.
Yep.
And so it's like this. It's a really great character that just came out of that because of the way they were all talking about it. It was awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, those are invaluable tools. I use them all constantly for starting games.
Um, yeah, and I was just kind of thinking, because we've been kind of on this path already, and it's just coming up organically.
Yeah, yeah.
Another kind of thing that a lot of people, from what I've been reading off of Reddit, um, is they're worried about their improv skills, and how they're worried that they will not be able to improvise with how the players go, how the players run, and they think that they're just going to completely stalemate. And my one thought actually was coming is like, but if you can like, and I know that some people they're going to say, but you're running a whole setting instead of just a player, which I think is valid in some senses. But if you can role play or improv a character and how you think they'll do, then shouldn't you also be able to do the campaign? And on that note, I'm going to say I apologize. I've just been drinking coffee and carbonated water all day. I really got to take a leak. So improv away, guys. So unprofessional, but I don't care. I really got to go.
So, yeah. So I think my advice for folks would be, and I'm curious to hear your perspective on this too, is like, I would dare say that most of the improv, and I know it's like, oh, the monkey wrenches, but really, if you empower the players and don't be married to the stupid adventure idea, like I think that's a big problem for folks. Is they get married to their adventure.
I agree. Although even then, I would say to your point, let the players help. It's okay for you to say to your players, you know what, I don't know what to do in this scenario. You guys have done something that's gone off the rails, and I'm not sure where to go with it. The players may be willing to offer up advice that says,
Yeah.
"Hey, you know what, this could happen," and that's cool. And then if you can incorporate that, that player just feels more invested now because you're taking one of their ideas and you're running with it.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I mean, heck, who was it? Was it Raymond Chandler? I think who said if he ever got stuck in a story, he just had somebody shoot somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's
So
just it's because that moves things forward.
yeah. So I mean, it's okay to just throw something that's completely out of left field into it as well, just to shake things up and give you time to think about something else. So maybe a rival gang or a rival adventuring group has caught up with them, and now you got to deal with that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
those are kind of my thoughts on that one.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of a really good like gone off the rails moment, because really if you're going off the rails, to me that indicates you had rails laid, which indicates a railroad. You know what I'm saying?
well, I don't necessarily completely agree.
Yeah.
It could be an outline, and you're saying they've gone completely outside of my outline now,
Yeah.
which is okay because an outline is just that. It just means you gotta throw something else out there now that can steer them back. I mean, give them a plot hook that brings them back where you want them to be, or completely run off and see where they're going with this, because it may be a lot more fun than the adventure you had planned.
Absolutely.
Which has happened.
Yeah, maybe your shit's just jank and they don't like it. And they're subconsciously like, this is going to be boring as shit and we're picking up on this. Yeah, you never know, right?
I'm back with it.
Okay. Yeah, we heard you breathing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Did anyone give any examples of how they got derailed or their improv skills were called into question?
It's kind of funny because only like it's the people who are talking about their improv skills are people who don't generally GM, and I think it's one of those things where it's like people are it's the concern of not being able to do it and not actually have done it yet from the sounds of it, at least. You can only get so much off of a post. But yeah, it sounds like it's more of like, it's that whole thing is part of the reason why it's holding them back from even trying even once. So
then I say, you know what, if that's the biggest concern, say, okay, we need to take a 5-minute break. I need to think about this. And you can it's okay to take a break. It's okay to let the players even do some role playing while you're doing some planning, because I've had to do that, and it's okay. It doesn't have to be an instantaneous, oh, I know exactly what's happening now. It's okay to let them peek behind the curtain. They know you're a friend. They know you're just GMing, and it's not like a script that's written down. So
yeah, exactly. And you kind of hit on it, Santa, too, is like, you do improv when you're playing a character. Everything you do is improv because you're improving how you respond to everything the GM throws at you. And so, yeah, I think if more people concentrated and focused inward, they might realize that and maybe like, oh, okay, so it's kind of that easy. And then, yeah, taking the break thing that's pretty well known. It's almost a meme at this point. Yeah, well, I don't know.
Well, even I was going to say, even even something that someone posted on someone's comment on Reddit was just saying, you know, DMing or GMing, it's a skill.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's you're never going to be the best GM from the first time going through. And especially if you know the players, they'll know it's your first time as well, or your second time, or you're still new at it relatively, and they're not going to expect you to be able to do a Matt Mercer esque campaign that lasts you know 30, 40, 50 hours, that spans an entire year, that has plot hook upon plot hook, and the small thing that's over on this side over here all of a sudden popped up 10 episodes later. And like, nobody fully expects that. People think that, oh, that's a really cool idea, and you can do those little kind of plot hooks, but nobody expects you to be able to do that your first go.
Yeah, no. Heavy note taking, right? I mean, I still take notes. You guys, you may or may not hear me, but yeah, whenever we're talking, it's not like I'm remembering everything you guys say because it's just impossible given a full day job and stuff. So I take quick notes on things you guys are saying and describing things, and that's how I maintain some of that. And same thing for Matt Mercer. He's making those notes as well, and so you can bring those back. It's just knowing when to bring them in, but
Yeah.
that becomes a little more organic. Have I don't I'm trying I can't I'm trying to think of a time where a group completely like made me rock back in the chair. I'm having a hard time with it. What about either of you running a game? Has anyone?
Has anyone done anything so
Yeah, just derailed you completely as someone running a game.
um my only one that completely derailed in my short experience, and it wasn't because of anything they did or anything like that. I mentioned it actually on the episode with Carrie, um, where the person rolled 34 or 35 or whatever, I forget the total, on their writing check just to see how quickly they get to town. And all right, well, yeah, teleported. Like, how, at that point, I was like, I was expecting like maybe something between 0 and 12 or 1 and 12. Not like, yeah, I had no idea what to do. I was like, huh, okay, this is like his
Well,
fifth roll in this entire game.
though, even then, the more you GM, the more experience you get, the more you're able to handle that, right? And that's one of the things that I think is I really like about the Coriolis system is every roll means something. In fact, the rule says don't have them roll unless it means something.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so if they're competent in this thing, they're likely going to succeed. And then when it becomes important to the story, whether or not they succeed or fail, then they roll. And the book also explicitly says every failure must have a result. There must be a consequence for that failure. And that consequence, and some of the things they say is that consequence could be that they get half the information, which means that they now may have misinformation if they interpret that half one way, or it may be correct if they interpret it a different way. But they talk about how if you can dole out information in degrees. And so, like, if they rolled that well, I'd say, what's the maximum you could shave off of a travel time? And that's what you got. And that would have been the same if they rolled lower. But I mean, it doesn't mean that the dice don't have to say that, oh, well, that's an impossibility. So you just teleported. And that's okay that they did. I mean, that would probably be a cool thing if you hit a portal that was just
Yeah.
happened to be right in front of your horse.
Yeah, I said that more in jest. Like, I just
No, I
mentioned it's
know.
like because at the end of it, I was like, no, you're expecting a 2-day ride, and it only
Yeah.
took you 1 day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and that's the thing is, I mean, you think about what's logical or what a logical outcome in a fantastical world. Of course, I mean, there is magic in a lot of the fantasy stuff, and
Yep.
Arthur C. Clarke said science that's advanced enough is indistinguishable from magic. So um, you've got that stuff, but the more you do that, the more you can come up with those sorts of things on the fly. And one of the things that I am learning, even at this stage in my GMing life, is there's value in GMing other systems
Hmm. Yeah.
because each system teaches different things. Like the way a prepared adventure for Coriolis is presented is completely different than anything I'd seen in like D&D. D&D modules have a very specific format, whereas in Coriolis, they break it into 3 acts. It's always a 3-act adventure. And Act 1, they give you the outline of here's what's going to happen in Act 1. And by the end of Act 1, they should be here. By the end of Act 2, they should be here. And by the end of Act 3, or at the beginning of Act 3, this is what should be happening and what they need to do to successfully complete Act 3. There's very little detail in any of them other than here are the major characters that they may find. Here is information about each of the different areas that you need to be aware of, but they rarely go into any explicit detail of what an area looks like. That's left for you to kind of come up with. And it's very open in terms of the way that they present it. And I'm still trying to come to grips with how to do those sorts of adventures. And why am I running them? Because I don't have a lot of time to prep. So I steal somebody else's story and I just run with that.
Yeah.
No, that's a good way too. So it sounds like a plot point campaign from Savage Worlds.
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, nice.
And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. You shoot.
I was to say I do. So I did. I had to dig back in the memories of an old man. So I do know when I was thrown off kilter. It was by two of my players, my wife and a friend of ours, and we were playing The Haunting in Call of Cthulhu, and these two shitheads decided the basement probably had. If you haven't played The Haunting, spoilers alert. Don't really care. But the basement of the house that they thought was haunted is probably haunted and probably is going to kill them. So they're not going in the house. They are calling the police from the outside, trying to get help, and they refuse to go in the house. And, a lot of so the rest of the players at the table were like either dead or in an insane asylum. And you can see the looks on their faces. And it was joking, like, it was like, first I gave them like, hey, cool. We're going to, your characters aren't going to be forced to go in here, but just for you, because they're new to gaming, like just for edification, the conceit of Cthulhu is you do dumb shit, right? Think of a horror movie and all the dumb shit that you scream at a screen. That's the stuff you're supposed to be doing because it moves everything forward and you get creeped out and you see all the crazy shit. I said, but I'm also, because everyone's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? How are you going to end this? It's like, oh, everything you do in the game is going to have consequences, and inaction also has consequences. And so we just we did the thing like, you don't go in there. The police search the house and they begin. They don't find anything. Yeah, well, they don't find anything, and they said then a week later, said they're both moms, and I was like, we're going to take this up a notch. Children are beginning to vanish off the street near where this house is. Ooh. And I was like, and then we just fade to black, and they were like, no. I was like, no, we're done. The adventure's now over. No, you chose not to encounter the sorcerer body. We're done.
Well done.
So yeah, God, I still hate him for that.
So
it's Cthulhu. Go to the fucking basement.
You're meant to do this.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about some of the preconceived notions that people have towards GMing and all that. But here's a question for people who are thinking, well, I might like it, but I really like being a player. What do you guys get out of GMing? What makes you come back and GM time after time?
I get to play the game I want to play because nobody wants to GM the games that I want to
play. Oh man, that it?
For the most part, I mean, I enjoy GMing. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and for me, it's a lot of fun just getting to see how my kids interact with one another as these different characters and presenting them something that they find exciting. So there's a lot of fun just hearing the excitement in the players that are there and enjoying the story that you're collaboratively telling. But mostly, I would be completely happy to be a player in almost all aspects, other than I never get to play in the sorts of games that I would like to play in, so I have to GM them.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to play Coriolis for years, and finally I'm only going to get to play this if I GM it. So here we go.
And you know what? I think that's another thing was a lot of people, it's just like, I really like this idea of this game, but I know nobody would GM it, so I have to learn the rules in order to do the mechanics so that we can play this game.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's how a lot of GMs start, or if it's just really just a lot of people. It's just like, well, nobody else is going to do it, so somebody has to step up to it. But
No, that's noble for people too to do it. That's
yeah,
awesome. You know.
Well, and you know, you mentioned something that I think is also a big concern that a lot of people have, and that is I have to learn the rules.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to learn the rules. You don't have to have the rules memorized, and you don't have to know them forward and backward before you can start GMing.
No.
I have not read the entire Coriolis rule book. I have read the sections that I think are going to come up most frequently. And I have also told the players, look, this is my first time playing Coriolis. Let's create characters. This is the first time you're all playing Coriolis. We're all learning the rules together. That's okay. We're going to make mistakes. That's okay. And I'll even let you adjust your character after we've played a few sessions. If you feel like your character build isn't what you envisioned it would be for this type of a game, you can tweak it because we don't know going into this first game how everything's going to work together. And
Yeah.
that's a real big thing that can happen is you can make a suboptimal build. Not that you have to be a munchkin, but your build may not hold up to what you wanted it to be in your head.
Well,
And
yeah.
so it's okay to adjust things after the fact. Is GM say, hey, we're gonna have some period of time where we can do some tweaks, and then we'll lock them down, and then we're gonna go with it.
Yeah. I
And that's
mean,
okay.
hell, look at Suede had to change one major thing, right? There were people who didn't take fighting or notice. And that becomes an issue when it's a
Yeah.
D4 -2.
Yes. Although they still don't get fighting, but you're
It's
right.
not the
Absolutely.
fighting, but yeah,
Notice and
yeah,
stealth,
the notice, yeah.
and it's like heck, we
That's
had a Deadlands group that nobody had noticed.
oh, it's crazy. But it happens a lot.
It
It
was
used to happen a
hilarious.
lot back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
and I'm one of those people who it's like I would make a character without fighting skill just to see what the fuck happens.
Right, yeah.
Well, I can tell you what happens because I've had players that do that and they die very fast because you're running around with a 4 parry.
2, right? Because technically it's a
Oh yeah,
minus
yeah,
2.
yeah, two,
So
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely correct. Yeah.
Fucking 2.
Two. A
Good
2
luck.
parry means you're getting hit all the time,
Yeah.
typically with raises all the time,
Yeah.
and so
Just brutal.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I was going to say something contradictory to that, but then I was
Uh-oh.
remembering our Wrath and Glory game where my guy could kill things very easily, but I couldn't dodge a single goddamn anything. And as soon as we went up against something that is anti-tank or anti-heavy armor, my guy died on the first turn of combat. So
So a glass cannon.
Glass cannon. Yeah, I was
he
just thinking
wasn't
that.
no, he wasn't a glass cannon because I seriously throughout the entire game, I think I got wounded once because my armor was just so stacked where I was just like, I'll just face tank my way through everything. You can hit me anywhere. I'll just be fine. And I was. And then all of a sudden, if anyone's aware what Wrath and Glory's Warhammer 40K, and then I took 2 plasma rifles straight to the face, and I died pretty much instantaneously.
Nice.
Yeah, it was actually really hilarious because we ended up all dying.
Well, it happens. I mean, it's, you know.
And
It's
it wasn't
wargaming.
Finder's fault. It
Yeah, I mean,
wasn't
it's
Finder's fault.
It's death and murder, so
Oh yeah, it was great. It was
that's
beautiful.
what happens.
What's your why do you keep on coming back to GMing there, Scott?
So I think we talked about a little bit a few times of like, I'm one of those people who we get in a group, kind of like Finder was talking about. If you're like, hey, we should, head down to the water park, and we're all sitting around, it's like, yeah, we should do that, or we should head down to Disneyland. Okay, cool story. Well, what are we gonna take? I don't give a fuck. We're gonna get in the car. We're gonna grab some gas. You can grab snacks on the way there. If we're gonna stay overnight, take a change of clothes and some underwear, grab those real fast. And your toiletries, you can take them with you, or we can just buy them at Walmart when you're down there because it's the 21st century, and you don't got to drag all your shit with you. So I'm that kind of personality, and I like entertaining people because I am what my wife calls an attention whore.
Oh.
I have to Google that, but yeah, but it sounds negative. But I like to entertain people, and I like when people have a good time. So like I'm the social butterfly kind of person, life of the party, where it's like, hey, let's talk about this, let's all laugh, let's have a good time. Um, and I think that's why I do it, because I'm like, man, life can be real bonkers for people sometimes, and if you get a chance to just cut loose and beat the dog piss out of something, or puzzle your way through something and get respected for your ability to use your actual intellect, or your personal morals and ethics bleed over into the character, or you get to fantasize about having morals and ethics. I like that. I like to bring that out in people and let them engage that. It's a safe space, not like that, but yeah, it's not like we're going to have anything weird go on in the house. But yeah, I think it's fun to watch people's faces when they're engaging or hear their voices, since we don't use cameras. You just know, like, oh, we're touching nerves and there's touch points that they're really having a good time. So I think that's why I keep doing it. I'm also a pain in the ass player. I've told you my stories. So
Yes, yes, you have.
I
Um,
expect I expect you to, I don't know what I expect. It's
it,
not
it,
rules. It's just, I don't know,
if anyone wants to hear any of Scott's stories about uh, him as a player, I'm pretty sure it was the episode. It was one of our
man.
first ones, Immersions and Scott's fucking con.
Yeah.
I
And
think
I
that
don't
was
do it
it.
on purpose. If I smell a railroad, I'm going to fuck your railroad up. I'm telling you that right now. I'm going to go out of my way to fucking do it. And maybe that is a dick. But even in a con game, it's not so much a railroad. It was just like, if I get whiff that you don't know what the fuck you're doing, like in a real bad way, or you're being weird about it. And, like, yeah, I would go back and listen to the whole Trauma Team, because that was the game I waited months to play, a Trauma Team paramedic. Because if I could play anything in a game, it would be a Trauma Team member from Cyberpunk, and that would be my character. I would do that. I played it in Shadowrun. I play their med techs. I love that kind of shit. It's right up my alley of roleplay. And to watch this dude just shit all over Trauma Team, the concept of Trauma Team, and not really have an idea of how Trauma Team would function, really just pissed me off. And so I was just like, no, bitch, we're all learning something at this table today about Trauma Team. So here we go. I'm going to touch into my personal area of expertise, and we're going to do this the right way. And I don't know. I guess that does sound like a dick. Wow. Now that I said it out loud again,
It's okay. People have been listening to this podcast for a while. They already know you.
yeah. I can't put in other words about when I say I'm a pain in the ass player. I don't go out of my way to be an ass. But if so my problem, that's what it is. If you're, and this is going to sound bad, we're trying to give people advice on prep. If I know you're new, like we played the one game with the girl who was running Tesla and Lovecraft, and it was her first time running Savage World, or maybe one of her. She was very new at GMing. So my friend and I, we ran with that, and we helped make her game the best game she could possibly have. Right? If that makes sense?
Yeah, you were actively trying
Yeah,
to make it the best game for her.
exactly. And we did all the fun stuff, and we looked at all the dumb shit ritual books, and we did everything we could. But we also would give her small ideas with how we would interact with one another, because Chuck and I role play really well. Chuck's personality is a lot like mine. And she was just like, holy shit, I've never seen people role play like this. And so it helped her give her ideas. But if I sense that you're just a fucking shit GM and you don't try, that's what it is. I think I mentioned on the podcast. If I get the sense that you just don't fucking try, you're disrespecting my time, you're disrespecting the table's time. And people pay a lot of money sometimes to go do some of this shit. And they spend a lot of their own personal time away from families and friends and things they could be doing that they enjoy to come to your table. And I'm not going to allow you to just fuck. You have to edit this episode a lot. I'm not allow you to fuck off someone's personal investments in their character and their time with people that they think are their friends or consider friends, and you're just sitting there just being a douche. It's not going to happen. And so I will seize the fucking means of production on the fucking game, and we're going to have it. We're going to have the adventure that, the table wants to have and not what the GM wants to have. And maybe that is a dick move, but I'm a pretty quick read of the table, and I usually play face types or, highly charismatic characters, paladins, shit like that. So.
Well, fortunately for you, and also fortunately for me, I have already said that we will not be editing out any of the fucks because I think at this point that button on my computer would break.
I hope what I said makes sense in some way. I was like a complete
It-
dick, but
No, no,
well,
no,
no,
it makes sense.
and I think you touched on something though that I think is important, and that is, generally speaking, if people know you're a new GM, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
oh
They
yeah,
want you to be successful. Why? Because there are so few GMs, and if you're willing to GM, they want you to succeed because that means they get to be a player still.
yep,
So
yeah,
Yeah.
it's, I mean, just be upfront with people. Even it's like, hey, I'm new. I
yeah.
still use the I'm new.
I mean, yeah, I'll be fair. I'm not like, hey, I suck at science fiction. You
Yeah.
know, someone's like, I even said during when I was running Neon Blood, they're like, didn't you write the game? I was like, yeah, I understand the contradictory nature of what I just told you.
Well, you know, coming up with a setting idea and some rules to support that is different than coming up with a cyberpunk adventure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
They're like, what does the city look like? Bitch, I don't know. Have you seen Blade Runner? Just
It's like, I can't run a low life game or a paranoia game, but I certainly know how to play a Monty Python type character.
Yeah.
oh
So yeah,
yeah. Well, it's like
and so
Santa would be great running. We talked about this. He would
yeah,
be perfect to
yeah,
run Paranoia or Low Life, and you and
yeah.
I would be able to run with that. And I would consider you, Santa, right or wrong, a fairly new GM. Is that fair?
100% right. 100% right.
And we wouldn't be dicks about it because we know you're a new GM, and it's a zany setting, and so it would allow us to really help you grow in your methods and your madness.
Well, even in the episode, I don't know if you weren't here for this one, Scott, but me and Finder were talking about it was the losing friends along the way. I don't know if you listened to that one.
Not yet.
Um, uh, but I actually mentioned what I would have ran for low life if I didn't have to switch to evenings.
Oh my
And
god, I'm gonna listen to the thing.
do you want me to just tell you now?
Go ahead, because now I'm
Okay.
curious.
Okay, so what I was planning is I was planning to do a riff on the movie Cowboys vs Aliens.
Yes. Oh my
Um,
god.
but what I had planned was you would be attacked in the nighttime. Your characters would be either part of this town, outlaws, or just visiting. It would really be up to what you guys wanted to do. You'd be attacked by monsters, and they would be these flying, kind of almost stringy, kind of bloody looking monsters that fly from the sky, land on the ground, and almost kind of transform in front of you and are attacking. And you'd end up only being able to kill one before all of a sudden the rest of the flock almost kind of vanishes. And on observation, you would notice that the entire monster, this flying beast, was made out of pasta sauce and spaghetti. And um, then there would be like a town meeting called the next day,
Oh.
where there would be like a town hall where you talk about this weird thing. I'm like, you're trying to gather information about what the hell is this, and there would be one guy at the back of the room who does this jaws scratching on the board, um, about the monster, and he would talk about how he saw this in a town in the town he was in before, and how it ended up consuming the whole town. So you'd end up going on this massive adventure to try and get to this place that he would say that existed, which turned out to be an ancient Chef Boyardee factory that used to do all the canning and production of Chef Boyardee. And it was ran by this amalgamation of a monster that would essentially kidnap and consume all these beasts in order to make, or creatures, in order to make more pasta, in order to create more monsters. And the giant amalgamation was called Chief Boyard. And I was planning this whole, I was thinking of this whole thing where it's like,
Oh my
okay, you
god.
face these flying spaghetti monsters that you don't exactly know where they come from. We go through this whole thing of almost like, and it all spawned from the goddamn Cowboys vs Aliens movie. And I was just thinking, how could I make it post-apocalyptic, but also give it my own freaking style? and that
Right.
that was my whole concept behind it. And
Oh my god,
uh,
my Twinkie person would be a like a lost world occultist, so I could play I'd be Richard Dreyfuss.
but yeah,
Mr. Hooper Twinkie, it's all good in your ivory towers.
yeah, and I just wanted to do riff on like not like make it 100% purely obvious that I'm doing a riff on another movie, but just add in these tiny little scenes from movies where it's like if you're really paying attention, you kind of catch on. Like I said, with the chalkboard was very obvious, but then I thought of a few other little ones along the way where it's just like, oh, is that did he steal that from this movie? And it's like, no, it's not the same, but
Ah, it's perfect. See, that's what I'm
yeah.
talking about. Like, I don't think Finder and I both have agreed that we definitely could not. I don't think I could run low life either effectively, but I think you can run those kinds of games. Man, I want to play that so bad. I want to be a Twinkie man. So you have no idea how much I want to play a
I know,
fucking
me too.
the cream fillion.
Oh, we'll have to maybe.
Oh my god.
I still say,
Yeah.
although we don't do actual plays on this podcast, if enough people want like a one shot or like maybe like 2 or 3 episodes where we kind of just sprinkle them in, I'd totally be down. But you guys need to let us know if you want that.
It has starchy tentacles,
Yeah.
long, hot, starchy tentacles.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
roll over.
Yeah.
We're on a cream fillion tub.
Yep.
768 cream fillions went in the big drink.
That would be good.
God, my God.
So is
Many UFOs died to bring us this information.
That was just an amazing game.
just at the
Oh,
just
my
at the
God.
end of it, just bring in was it the Independence Day kind of fucking
Give us a speech.
give the presidential
Yeah.
speech from Independence Day, and on this day. Oh god! But I think that's actually another thing that new GMs should look at is what kind of style do you think you'd be best at? Like with me, like we
Right.
said, I probably would do slapstick very well. I don't
Yeah.
think although I like the grim and the dark kind of settings, I don't think I would do a good job at it.
I don't think you can resist your natural urges.
No, my natural urges would say, okay, let's add in some fuckery.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a weird keyhole in the wall, about fist size, waist level. Be like, stop. We're not opening the door that way. No, come on, open the door that way.
And you just do an Austin Powers Gold member kind of reference in that one. Grab onto the 2 poles next to it.
Yeah, but you're not wrong. Yeah, there's just certain genres, and if it's something you're super interested in, you probably do quite well. Fantasy's super easy for everyone. I think it's easy for everyone, but I know there's some people who hate fantasy, so maybe not.
Oh, I think the reason, because even like the one person was saying is like, yeah, I just don't like fantasy, but it's the one that everyone plays, and I think it's just because anyone can really run fantasy, because at the end of the day, you can just explain it with magic.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows knights. I will say this, and you might be surprised too. I grew up in the Southwest. I spent a long time in the Southwest around actual real ass cowboys. I ran Deadlands, and I was bored out of my fucking mind. I did not like running Deadlands. I don't know why. I'm just zero interest in that setting.
Well, and though I think that goes to if you run what you want, players just want to play.
Yeah.
I mean, do we tend to go with fantasy? Yes, because that's also what a lot of GMs tend to run. And that's okay. But, I mean, I've never turned down a game, even if I'm only mildly interested in it or I have no interest in the setting itself. The fact that I just get to play is fun for me. So it's like, I'm generally not a Call of Cthulhu type player, but that was something that Scott, you ran, and I'm like, hey, I'm happy to play it. I think it'll be cool, and I really enjoyed the game. I enjoyed the setting, and so it's like players, I think, just want to play.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
That's 100% true. Like, I'm not crazy into fantasy, but if someone said, "Hey, do you want to play this game?" I'd probably still say yes.
Now, there is one aspect that we've not touched on. I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to bring it up, and you can let me know how much time you want to take on it. But that is for new GMs. one of the big concerns is learning the rules. And
Yeah.
there are systems that are easier to learn than others. Like I would not looking at D&D now, I mean, three books to run the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Savage Worlds is one book, and
Yeah.
the rules are fairly basic, and they're not. There are other systems that are also pretty easy to pick up and run.
Yeah.
Coriolis has a fairly easy mechanic. I'd say it's probably a little bit more complicated than Savage Worlds, but you can also look at other game systems to figure out what you may want to run that would make your job easier as a GM.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of funny that you said that. And because even one of the people on Reddit who has GM'd actually mentioned that GMing is what ended up making him hate 5e.
Spicy. Oh,
Yeah.
downvote, downvote, downvote.
Uh, yeah. Is there any? What was it? Yeah, we are getting a little bit long here.
Whatever.
Is there any? Yeah, no, I know.
Cut it in half.
Nah, honestly, I think this is important enough for people just to kind of like listen. I don't care about cutting in half. But is there anything else that maybe I'm missing that you guys feel like is important for new GMs to know? 'Cause I think
Sure.
we tackled quite a bit. Oh, go ahead, Finder.
One of the things that I will mention is my oldest boy when he talked about learning all of the technical side of things that you have to do if you're going to be playing online.
Ooh, yeah.
There is a difference between playing in person and playing online. I prefer online now.
Oh,
There's a lot of stuff in person that I love the in person interaction and be able to be around the dinner table with everybody and having a good time and laughing and all that stuff. But there are things that the virtual tabletops do allow me to do as a GM that I always found a little bit more difficult. But do you have to have all of the bells and whistles? Do you have to have the maps? Do you have to have um, all that stuff? And I know my answer to that, but I'm going to go, Scott. What are your thoughts?
So I think I mentioned this before. It does depend on your gaming environment. So here at the house, I still have a HD TV hooked up to an Apple TV, and so and a surround sound system. So my MacBook Bluetooth to Apple TV, so I can throw as an extended monitor. I throw shit across the room, right in the digital, the cloud, if you will. And so they're looking at maps and images, so I can just on the spur, like, this is what this looks like. This is what this looks like. This is the area you're looking at. Here's what a barrel mound looks like. At the same time, I'm playing the soundtrack, splitting that Bluetooth connection between two different devices. And so I can still approximate the online in person. Plus, I have all my physical props, which I think is a plus up for me playing in person because you get to hold on to toys and shit.
And that is one of the absolute cool things about in person.
Yeah. But I think
I remember one of the games that my brother used to GM back in the early '80s. He was doing a D&D campaign, and he made this map, this treasure map that his group was going to find, and he had built the entire map. He put this sort of paper on top of it that made it so you couldn't see it unless you held it up to the light itself, and then you could see
nice.
the map.
oh,
And then he cut it up into different sections, and so they would find part of the map in different areas of the campaign. And so they're all trying to construct this map, and then they had to figure out how to read the map because you couldn't just read it normally. So that was like one of the coolest props I'd seen. I'm like, that's awesome. I wish I could do that.
Yeah. I guess I didn't really answer your question. Do you need to learn all the bells and whistles for online gaming? No, because I'm probably going to find stuff that's out there to help you. Like Roll20, there's so much written about it, and I know Roll20 is falling out of fashion for some weird ass reason for far more complicated tabletops. Roll20 is literally a drag and drop some shit, and I don't know why that Foundry is taking over. Foundry is not exactly drag and drop. It kind of functions that way, but there's still some issues with it, and you need a computer that actually has some ass to it. I found to run Foundry properly. What's the other one? The Fantasy Grounds. I'm just not a fan of Fantasy Grounds. It's so fucking clunky. It's like it was designed in 1980s. I don't understand that interface whatsoever. It may just be me. Everything is so cramped and shit. But yeah, so no, I think you're right. Just go with some basics and slowly learn, like you don't need the dynamic lighting. And if you do think you need dynamic lighting, buy one of the modules that are professionally done. The D&D modules almost all have everything already preset for you.
Yep.
And big secret is you can run a D&D module in any game system. You just get to do a little bit of tweaking to the tokens, and that's it.
Yep,
It
yep.
really,
Yeah.
it's that easy.
My last campaign that I ran for my kids was a converted D&D module to Savage Worlds.
Yeah, it goes fairly easily, and that's all your
Yeah.
prep work, really.
Yeah. If you look at it, I
Yeah.
mean, the module is a storyline. All you got to do is restat block all the monsters.
That's it, and it goes pretty fast. It really does.
But yeah, I tend to agree. I think people have forgotten that in this online world, we feel like there's an expectation that you have this map and it's got like this dynamic lighting. And you know what? Back in the day when we were playing D&D, the players had to make their own map, as I described. The scenes.
I mean, look at I
So
don't even use maps with you guys anymore. I put
No,
this
you
cool
don't.
splash screen up, and I make
Yeah.
your tokens for your characters gigantic, like coaster size, so we get to see how cool you are, and then we just fucking adventure.
100% on that one.
So yeah, I mean, in my opinion, you don't need to do that. Even if you're running a system as simple as Savage Worlds, the great thing there is if you want to have an encounter, do you have to stat every mook out? No. You're fighting this group of people. They've got D6s in fighting. They've got D8 in shooting. And you can just throw the dice. You don't even need a character sheet. I still use character sheets because I prefer it, because I can get a little bit spiffier output and I can do some other things with it. But you don't need to. You don't need to have all those bells and whistles. Just go and have fun. Just run it. Run the game.
Yeah, exactly. You'll have an unfair advantage when roll 20
Well,
character sheets anyway. We'll fucking talk about that. You and your bullshit.
Well, I think that's a nice little wrap-up spot right there.
That's a good one.
It's kind of wholesome. It sounds kind of nice. I would ask you, Finder, what did we learn today? But to be honest, I think
we learned that everybody that has been thinking about GMing but is afraid to, just go do it.
Yeah,
Just do it. You'll
Try
love
it
it.
out, guys.
It's fun.
it'll be all right.
And don't expect to be running the next great Lord of the Rings Tolkien-esque fantasy, because it's going to turn into Monty Python anyway.
Yeah.
True that. True that. Well, RP people, that's all the time we have for today. If you like this episode or have any questions, please let me know by emailing me at rpsmartpeople@gmail.com. We'd love to answer some questions for you, so send them on. Hell, even if you have like an audio clip that you'd like to send us, I'll put it on the show. We'll play it. We'll play it on here, and then we'll even answer the question. If you didn't like this episode, you can always message me on Twitter at rpsmartpeople, and I'd love to tackle your concerns. Maybe. Now, we are a small podcast. We'd love it if you could tell your friends, your family, your neighbor, that random guy across the street, pretty much anyone, because we'd love to grow and just really kind of make this it is a real thing, I would say, because we're making something. But I love to just start, like, putting out more things, doing more stuff, because I have a lot of fun doing it, and I hope you guys do too. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.